Thank you to Crystal Skies and Adept Mage for inspiring me to make this video. This video, like Christmas for a Child of Divorce, comes to us in two parts. First, we'll start off with what is the Beeble scale and how did it come to be, and then we'll take a look at the loser creature types that have the worst scores on the Beeble scale. Hi, I'm Harrison. I run these here parts. For the past 9 months, I've been releasing a series on this channel of YouTube shorts. It comes out every other day, and in alphabetical order, I've been going through every single creature type in Magic the Gathering. The goal is to make a video about every single one, but since they keep adding ones, it's hard to give exacts, but I'm roughly halfway through now. This deep dive into such a small yet crucial part of the game has given me a greater appreciation for the game itself. There are such intricate details that go into just the creature types that you may not think of, one of which is the Beeble scale. I've mentioned it a handful of times in that series, and almost every time I do, I get a comment saying, what the hell is the Beeble scale? Honestly, I don't blame anyone for not knowing what the Beeble scale is. It's like a niche thing within a niche thing within a third niche thing. The Beeble scale straight up is the fleck on a speck on the tail on the frog, on the bump, on the branch, on the log, and the hole in the bottom of the sea of nerddom. So for the simple history of the Beeble scale, Mark Rosewater, the head designer of Magic the Gathering, has a Tumblr blog. Rather than using it to revel in the fact that we're getting a third season of Good Omens, like most Tumblr users I know, Mark Rosewater uses it to answer any and all questions from any fans. You can get some questions on there that are just trying to be funny but are really dumb, or you can get people that are just really dumb on there who would rather personally message the head designer for Magic the Gathering than just Google the question they have. One question he typically gets asked is, when is the thing I like coming back to the game? For this, he applies a handful of different scales. Each scale is a 1 to 10 rating on how likely it is to return to a standard Magic the Gathering set. 1 is, we'll definitely see it again, it's actually likely in the very next set that's coming out, and a 10 is, it would take a major miracle for this thing to come back to the game. He has a few different scales depending on what the subject matter is. It's normally named after things that are absolute 10s. They've happened in Magic before, but it'll take something ridiculous to happen for them to come back. The 4 main ones that get used are the Storm scale, which measures how likely a mechanic is to return. It's named after Storm. Pretty safe to assume we're never going to see Storm again in a standard set. There's the Rabaya scale, which measures how likely it is we are going to return to a plane in Magic Story. It's named after the plane from Arabian Nights, which, since Magic doesn't actually own the legal rights to that world, we aren't going to see it as a standard legal set anytime soon. There's the Venser's scale, which is how likely we are to see a Planeswalker type return. Venser is a somewhat older Planeswalker in Magic's lore, who is the deadest dead can be. So dead they dug up his corpse and made him into a corpse puppet. That's not even me being hyperbolic. They straight up did that, the lore. That is the card's name. But then there's the scale I want to talk about today, which is the Beeble scale. The Beeble scale measures how likely it is for an existing Magic the Gathering creature type to appear in a standard Magic the Gathering set. I want a quick note there, that's a part that gets a bunch of people tripped up, is the standard legal part. Magic, especially recently, has put out a lot of non-standard legal product. So Beeble scale doesn't count Commander products, any Universes Beyond products, any Modern Horizons stuff, anything like that. Standard sets are where they're able to keep most things tame and under control, for the most part. Well, the Storm scale was named after Storm being ridiculously strong. The Rabaya scale was named after Rabaya being a plane that we can never legally return to again. And the Venser scale is named after a Planeswalker that is super dead. So where does Beeble come from? I'm glad you asked. There are 5 Beebles in Magic the Gathering. The first 2 were Bouncing Beebles and Bubbling Beebles from Urza's Legacy and Urza's Destiny, respectively. Mechanically, they're very similar. Outside of mana value and power and toughness, they practically have the same rules box, save for one caring about enchantments and the other caring about artifacts. Actually, wait a minute. These 2 cards actually came out 4 months apart, and one is worded if they control an artifact, and the other one is worded as long as they control an enchantment.
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
So we have the first 2 Beebles, but you're probably still asking yourself, what the hell is a Beeble? Beeble were these small little guys that were original to Magic the Gathering. They're described as being roughly the size of a fist. They look like naked Dr. Seuss characters. The lore says they have wings, but that doesn't really show up too often on cards. They range in color from pink to gray to blue, but they're most dominantly in pink. they're permanently happy, and they're slightly mischievous. They're notably somewhat indestructible in the lore, to the point that Teferi, that Teferi, once attached 2 Beebles to his feet and started to bounce around. Now, they're not naturally occurring. They're a magical construct similar to our friend the Homunculus, which is a large part why we don't get Beebles anymore. If a card could be a Beeble, it would just be a Homunculus and be a lot less goofy. I said less goofy, not completely void of goofiness. Researchers at Tolarian Academy would summon Beebles to experiment and demonstrate spells on. Alright gang, here's how Fireball works. Beebles were also commonly used for practical jokes around Tolarian Academy. Sounds like a fun life. You get summoned because that's how Beebles are made. You get blown up several times, so other people can then learn how to blow you up. This way it's safe for everyone. And then at the end of the day, you get used as a living whoopee cushion. So after their first appearance at Urza's block, they pretty much got sidelined immediately, at least as a creature type. They made cameo appearances in card art, but even that didn't last forever. This will be brought up in the card Bursting Beebles and its flavor text from Unhinged, the second comedy set that came out in 2004. Like thousands of others, the Beebles quit Magic for several years following the release of Mercadian Masks. At this point, Beebles were demoted to just making appearances in unsets. Bursting Beebles came out in Unhinged and kept some of the original flavor while appealing to the set's mechanics. Blurry Beeble came out in Unstable, with the keyword blurry, which is similar to its earlier mechanics, but now we have a loot ability attached to it. And then the final and most recent creature to have the creature type Beeble attached to it is Bamboozling Beeble from Unfinity. It really only matches Beeble in name and art only, but is mostly there to support the dice rolling mechanic in the set. It is notable that since they're printed in Unfinity and don't have the Acorn stamp, this is the third and latest Beeble that is legal to play in Eternal formats. The comedy sets having more lax rules for what can and can't be on cards meant that we also got a Beeble Planeswalker, an attraction that creates Beebles, and a name sticker so you can make whatever you want into a Beeble by name. So it's obvious now we're never getting Beebles again in like a standard legal set, and if we ever get Beebles legal in tournament play, they're gonna have to jump through several hoops to get there. But that's how we got the Beeble scale. It was a roundabout way to get there, but I just really wanted to talk about the Beeble scale. So a recap from before that whole rant about Beebles. The Beeble scale is made by Mark Rosewater, the head designer of Magic the Gathering. It's a way of showing how likely a creature type is to show up again. We don't have absolutely every creature type on this scale. It's only the ones that have been directly asked about on his blog. It's a scale from 1 to 10, 1 meaning that it's very likely, and it's more than likely that's actually in the next set coming out, and then a 10 meaning it would take a major miracle for this mechanic or this creature type to come back. So Beebles, the namesake of this scale, have a 10. Joining them on the 10s is Lords, which is a defunct term in Magic the Gathering. It used to be in Magic the Gathering, if a single creature gave a buff to a whole type of creature type, that original creature would be a Lord. Eventually they just started making that creature whatever the creature it actually is. Instead of Lord of Atlantis being a Lord, it is now a Merfolk. Now the term Lord is only used as slang. It would be interesting to see Lord return in Magic the Gathering, but less as what it originally was used for, and more that these creatures just get recognized as nobles, since that's a creature type that actually gets addressed now. But that would take some grand sweeping creature type update. Another 10 on the Beeble scale is Minion. Minions as a creature type have been retired, which is kind of funny to think about because Beebles were considered the namesake of this scale because surely they'll never come back. But they've still come back in supplementary sets. What separates Minions from Lords is that Lords have been completely errated out. Any card that used to be a Lord is no longer a Lord. Minions still exist. They just don't get cards anymore. We got a couple Minions in supplementary sets from around 2018, but those were more just references to older days of Magic, because the last ones that came out before that were just super old. It was an occupational creature type meant for any creature that worked and served some greater monster, some bigger evil, but it's still such a vague term. Like with that logic, any evil creature that isn't the big bad would technically be a minion. And even then, a lot of big bads are big bads for the set that they're in, but then they're just working for some greater evil. Now these are the only 3 with a 10. And a 10 on the Beeble scale means it needs a greater miracle to come back. A 9, however, only needs a minor miracle. So let's see some creature types that maybe, if we wish upon a star, we might see again one day. I know it's supposed to be pronounced Alf, but I really like it being pronounced Ooh. I think that's funnier. You might recognize this creature type because that's where we get cards like Glimmer Baron, or Collector, or even Kitchen Finks. What's funny is that even though these guys remain at 9, we got a handful of new ones in the new Eldraine set. It needed to be the exact right environment for them to return, but Wilds of Eldraine just happened to be just that. Now, if you Google it says goblin or elf. Since it's such a vague starting line, and those are two things that are pretty well defined within Magic already, I can see why this is a creature type that's only going to get used under the right conditions. My guess is that this would probably be closer to a 7 or an 8 currently, but 9 is the most recent documentation, so it remains there today. Our next creature type is the Lycid. I actually just recently covered this in one of my Creature Type of the Day videos. They're all kind of neat. They have a symmetrical quality amongst the creature type that I just love in creature types. They all do the same thing, just slightly different. Each one is a creature that you can pay mana and tap it to then turn it into an aura to throw it onto something. It gives that creature some sort of effect, some are debuffs, some are buffs. Then if you want to, you can pay to unattach it and have it be a creature again. Their ability is super cool, it's just really wordy. So I can see why they wouldn't want to bring it back. The next creature type is Bringer. Bringer, I hardly know her. They were a cycle from the original Mirrodin block. They were supposed to be the physical manifestations of the Plains 5 Suns. Mirrodin has gone through quite a transformation since then. Maybe now that the Phyrexians have been evicted, we could see them return in maybe 10 years when we come back to that plane. But also that name, I can definitely see why Bringer didn't catch on. Like, these should have just been elementals or avatars or something. It didn't need its own creature type. Next one is Monger. Monger, I hardly know her. Mongers are a really neat cycle, and that's pretty much where this creature type starts and ends. They're all 3/3s for 3 and then a specific type of colored mana, and then they all have an activated ability that anyone can activate. I think it's really neat to mess around with this in a multiplayer setting. I have been trying to build like a 5-color Mario Party Chaos deck in Commander for a while now. You best believe at least a couple of these dudes are showing up there. But like Bringer, did this really need to be its own creature type? I'd like to see this be expanded on more in the future, but I understand why this will never be in a standard set. The next creature type is Processor. Processor? I hardly know her.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
This is one of the few creature types on here that I actually remember being there for when this came out. Boy, Processors were, frankly, an underwhelming creature type, if you can even call them that. They're not even really their own creature type, they're just like a subsect of Eldrazi. The original set that had Eldrazi built them up to be these scary monsters, and then the cards for that set stepped up to that. They became this terrifying thing, both in the Magic lore, and both to sit across from at the Magic table. And then they made Processors, which were just boring. Magic, like, overcorrected. And a bunch of them are just really bad. Maybe this is how the Gatewatch actually just blew them up. What I really don't like about Processors is that their whole shtick is that they take stuff from your opponent's exile pile thing. They really need a better term for that word. And they take that thing from exile and they put it into the graveyard. And you're thinking, well, Harrison, that is a lot of hoops to jump through. You're correct. And there's absolutely no payoff actually worth it. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a whole creature type Magic just wants you to forget. I was going to do more of this video, but it already seems like this video is getting really long. A lot longer than I thought it'd be. So I'll finish off with our final number 9 on the Beetle scale. One of my favorite creature types, Feldegriff. I hardly know DeGriff. I'm back and I'm better than ever. Feldegriff as a creature type contains 2 creatures. They're purple hippos with wings. One of them is a legendary and a classic trademark of the days of yore of Commander, when you actually could run suboptimal builds and just do whatever the hell you wanted. It's also a classic group hug card. The other one I could see actually being a potentially very strong Voltron commander, where you're part Voltron, part group hug, but it isn't a legendary, so that's a no-go. Besides just being a silly creature type, there is a bigger reason as to why Feldegriff probably won't return, or at least need a minor miracle for it. The name Feldegriff actually is an anagram of Garfield PhD, named after the lasagna-eating Dr. Cat that actually made the game Magic the Gathering. The original Feldegriff was a vanity card. Early Magic has tons of vanity cards. These are cards that are supposed to be referenced to either someone that is working on Magic, or has worked on Magic, or the people working on Magic are just a big fan of. They're a lot more common than you might think, and this is actually a massive rabbit hole that I fell down when making this video. Expect a longer video on this whole topic alone. The main whole point is Magic doesn't make vanity cards anymore. There are a few exceptions to that rule. Like, there was a Secret Lair that came out a couple years ago that was all dogs, and each dog that was on card art or mentioned the flavor text is based off of a real card, but those are dogs, so they're cool, so they break the rules. Or we also have the character Nevin Nurl. Nevin Nurl was a vanity card. He's more popular for his disc, but since the disc was made before they made the no vanity card rule, he's able to get grandfathered in. And this is why he shows up in Commander Legends. So why can't we get any more Feldegriffs? Aren't they just grandfathered in? Kinda and kinda not. The newest stance on vanity cards are that they can't be referenced to someone that works at Magic the Gathering or has previously worked there. Richard Garfield was a WotC employee, whereas the man that Nevin Nurl comes from never was. It's tragic. Magic's best creature type, and we'll never see it again. I kind of just wish they'd change the creature type to Hippo or something, and then we could feel free to just go at it. So the Beeble scale and some creature types that we can expect to never expect again. I've had a lot of fun going through this. I'm happy to be back in the saddle again, and hopefully I can crank out a couple more videos before I have to go on another 2-month hiatus. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to bolt your birds. I was going to do a bit about going through this door, but all my stuff is in the way, so I can't.